The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, obligatory 5-year anniversary celebrations, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes celebrate their 5th Duke-aversary. They update their lists of their top 10 games of all time, and then they deliver the long-awaited State of the Duchy. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And this is episode 206, the Quintessential Quinquennial episode, which we have titled that thanks to the help of Baker Mitchell. Thank you, Baker. Of course, this is our 5-year Duke-aversary, Alex. And happy Duke-aversary.
Happy Duke-aversary to you, too. What's the standard gift for 5?
Wood.
Is it?
That's what someone said in the guild.
Huh.
I think that was Chad Jacobson. I think he mentioned that in the guild. Was it him? I think so. So Alex, before we get into this, I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, let's hear it.
We discussed this last year. You're misspelling Duke-aversary.
What? How did I misspell it?
So it's D-U-K-E, and then you can go with or without the hyphen. Either way is acceptable. But then it's I-V-E-R-S-A-R-Y. It's Duke-iversary, and you keep putting Duke-aversary with an A.
Yeah, sounds cooler that way.
No, but it's not how you spell anniversary.
Well, that's fine.
We had the same conversation last year for our 4th Duke-iversary, not our 4th Duke-aversary. And it's like you just in one ear and out the other, Alex.
It's almost like this marriage is falling apart.
Because you just don't listen to me, is all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, sorry.
So happy Duke-iversary to you.
Happy Duke-aversary to you, Sean.
Oh, my goodness. By the way, we get help naming all of our episode titles with our awesome board game Geek Guild number 2008. There's 5 other fantastic title suggestions that we'll go over in our runners-up at the end of the episode. So, Alex, how you been?
I've been really stressed out and tired.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you just got back from GenCon.
I did, and that was stressful and tiring. And Monochromatic Wolf is launching a Kickstarter next week, so that's also stressing me out. So, all those things.
Can we call it a slap beginner? If it's Monochromatic Wolf, they're doing a slap beginner.
Oh, okay.
Instead of a Kickstarter?
As opposed to a punch opener?
Yeah.
I like punch better.
How about punch initiator?
Punch initiator.
That sounds really cool, actually.
Pledge today for our punch initiator. All right. Well, I didn't have anything else to go off of there. So yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired. Are you tired? How are you feeling?
I'm good. Actually, I'm not good. I found out today. So we're moving, right? Our main office. Yeah, because we have a bunch of satellite offices. No, our one and only office is moving. Just not too far away. And we signed on the new place, and we were supposed to have 2 weeks in advance of the actual start of the lease to be able to move things in. And we were just told that we basically don't have that anymore because new tile was delayed. Getting new tiles was delayed.
Okay. No big deal, right? Yeah, it's no issue.
Yeah, so as of right now, we're supposed to be able to move the day before we're supposed to leave. Over Labor Day weekend. And I was closing down the office on Friday in order to not eat up everyone's Labor Day weekend. And we're in the middle of negotiating to make them work faster so we can get in there when we're supposed to. So that's just a little stressful. That's all.
That's fine. It's just lawyer stuff.
Yeah.
Lawyer stuff is very stress-free.
It's very stress-free. But yeah, that's how I'm doing. I'm pretty stressed out right now. This whole move is really kind of throwing me for a loop. But what can you do?
August full of stress, man. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. And on top of it, Tuesday, 5 days from now, Mariah is out of here.
Oh.
She's moving into the dorms at the University of New Mexico, so that's kind of weird too.
That's not that far away.
Well, it's still weird. She's not going to be living here.
It's the same city. Come on.
Yeah, but okay. All right.
Grow
that's
up.
Fine. Jeez. All of the parents out there are like, wow, this Alex guy, he sure is a piece of work.
It's almost like he doesn't know what it's like to be a parent because he's not one.
Or have just a normal range of human compassion. Oh,
I have that too. Look, I'm sure it's very sad for everyone that Mariah's moving 10 or 15 minutes away.
There you go.
Oh, man. Oh, also, I forgot to mention I'm doing this on a broken laptop, so I can't really see you this time around, Sean. Did you give me are you smiling? Are you happy?
That's too bad, because Alex, I'm looking super sexy right now.
Are you?
Yeah. So the whole weight loss thing is still going good. I'm down another, well, let's see. Let me think about this. I've actually plateaued a bit because last we recorded was a week ago. Is that right? Yeah. Oh yeah, this was a week and a half-ish.
Yeah, about a week ago.
Yeah, so I plateaued a bit because I had just started going back to the gym, and I'm doing great at the gym. I'm doing great with my meal plans and eating, but I'm putting on some muscle, Alex.
Ooh, beefy boy.
Getting nice and swole. And so there's always that time when you start working out where as long as you're not overeating, and I'm not overeating because you know how you get hungry from all the strenuous activity, you kind of plateau. And so I'm losing fat. I'm taking measurements and stuff, and I'm seeing improvements there. But the weight itself is staying steady because I'm putting on muscle. So that's fine. Doesn't frustrate me at all.
It's great. You're doing great, Sean. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, my back feels better already.
Nice.
Which is great. I've got more energy already. I did the gym during lunch today, during my lunch hour. You are way more. I need to get motivated. I haven't been motivated. I don't know if it's time. I don't think it's really time. I think it's just motivation, Sean. I need to get better at motivation. Well, you're in a relationship, Alex, and that kind of saps a lot of the motivation.
Wow.
No, it does.
Wow.
That's just true.
All
that's
right.
That's just a fact.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying it only applies to you. I'm saying it applies to like most people.
Well, I'll pass the words along to Abby. So
it has nothing to do with Abby.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it does kind of, but not really. It's not her fault.
No. Hey, let's talk about games. What are we doing? This is a games podcast. Come on, man.
I don't know.
I just got back from GenCon. I brought back so many games this time around.
You brought back like 4, right?
I brought back way more than 4.
Like 6?
6 or 7? Sure.
Okay, 6 or 7 is not way more than 4, by the way. But
that doesn't count the monochromatic wolf library editions that we acquired, like Star Wars Outer Rim.
And so the joke I made in chat the other day was, those are a bunch of nice new games you got there, Alex. I see that you've doubled your collection now.
Sigh. Hey, do you want to talk GenCon first, or do you want to go first? Do you want to talk Pipeline?
Let's talk GenCon.
All right, let's talk GenCon.
Who cares about Pipeline?
So I was at GenCon, and I played not as many games as I would at, say, a smaller convention like Dice Tower Con.
Or SeanCon.
Or SeanCon, I guess. I got in a good amount, though. A good amount of new titles, starting with, I won't talk a ton about this one, Fleet Dice. Sean, have you played Fleet, the dice game?
I have not, but I've played the other Fleet games.
I haven't played the other Fleet. So this was one that was taught by Brant from the Portal Podcast.
Yeah.
Also, you know Brant.
Yeah, Brant Sanderson.
Yeah, Brant Sanderson.
Yeah.
He taught this one. It's a really elaborate roll and write. So elaborate that, in fact, you need 2 sheets. You need 1 sheet with all of your fishing boats, and then you need another sheet with the town locations and the extra special schmancy fishing boats and the market, and a place to keep track of scoring and income. Anyway, it's a 2-sheet roll and write. It's intense, and it plays really well. How this one works is you're going to, for the first phase of your turn, you're going to roll a bunch of dice. You're going to pick one for yourself. Then someone else is going to pick one. Then someone else is going to pick one. There's going to be one left over. And then everyone gets that one. Then you, depending on the round, might go out and fish. Or if not, you may roll another set of dice, which represent kind of more of the market dice. And you'll draft those around the table. When you draft these dice, they will get you improvements on this certain type of boat. So you might take, say, a swordfish license or a swordfish boat, or sometimes you get both. Sometimes you have to choose between the two of them. The boats hold fish. The licenses usually get you special powers, sometimes pertaining to that type of fish, sometimes pertaining to other things in the game. And there's a good amount going on in this game. But as far as a roll and write goes, if you're looking for a meteor roll and write, this is a good place to look. Fleet Dice is a really solid title. So that's Fleet Dice.
Real quick, is it the same designers?
I don't know.
Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle?
Here's the thing. I have half of a screen because my laptop is broken. So I would normally just look this up and then tell you on the fly, which I'm going to attempt to do on this New Look BGG website, in this New Look BGG world we're living in.
Whoa. Be careful there. You're using up our news content.
Oh, am I stepping on news? Perish the thought. I don't know if it's the same designers. Hang on.
I bet you $5 it is.
It probably. I won't make that bet.
Take the bet.
I'm not going to make the bet. It does have a very solid BGG rating, 7.8. It is, in fact, Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle.
All right.
There you go. All right. Next set of games I played was Watergate. Watergate, Sean.
Boo.
This is one that you're upset about because you were going to design this very game.
Yep. This makes me completely swear off Capstone Games. Capstone Games and I are completely done.
I have a feeling by the time we get to the top 10 list later in the episode, that won't actually prove to be true. That's a prediction. I'm making right now. So Watergate is a 2-player game designed by Matthias Kramer, depending on how you prefer to pronounce that, or even the correct way, which may have been none of the 2 options I gave. This is a 2-player game where one of you plays as Richard Nixon and one of you plays as the editor of the Washington Post. And if you're the editor, your job is to connect enough informants to Nixon using evidence. If you connect 2 of them to Nixon, you win. If you're playing as Nixon, if you get 5 on the momentum track, you win. How this game works is each of you has your own unique decks of cards. It plays a little like Twilight Struggle in a sense, but except all of the cards that you have are just your cards. When you play a card from hand, you're either going to play it to move the momentum disc, the initiative, or you are going to move a piece of evidence that's out on the table in front of you. At the end of the round, you're going to see where all those are and then award them appropriately. So if Nixon wins evidence, he can put it face down to block the player who's playing as the press. If you are the press, you want to acquire the initiative because 1, it keeps Nixon from getting it, and 2, you get special powers like impeachment, flip over one of the face down evidence tiles when you get really far down the track. It's really, really, really good, Sean.
Ooh.
It's really good. I played as both sides of this. I won both times. It's just a minor point. Don't worry about that. Minor point. And I ended up buying it. Bought it from Capstone, and it was a hot game of the show. I have only bought it after checking with Abby, my girlfriend, to ensure that it was a kind of game that she would enjoy playing. Sometimes a theme of a game is just so iffy that she's not so interested. But this is one I think she would enjoy playing, and it's one I think gamers are going to enjoy playing. It's definitely a more streamlined version of like a Twilight Struggle, and I think it does that really, really well. Feels very thematic, beautifully done, excellently designed. I strongly recommend Watergate. It was one of the contenders for my Game of the Con.
So you mentioned you play the editor of the Washington Post during Watergate. As a former news person, a news reporter, do you know who that is?
Nope.
It was Ben Bradley. Bradley.
Okay.
And I knew that because I researched a bunch of stuff to design a Watergate game.
Too slow, Sean. You're too slow. Next one I'll talk about is the Strike Tourney, which is run by Rolling Dice and Taking Names and is one of the highlights of my GenCon every single year. For folks who don't know, Strike is a game that is either a game of dice in a bowl that you're rolling into a bowl or game of gladiators in an arena. This is always, or has always in recent years been, at the old spaghetti factory where they dish up old spaghetti. No, the spaghetti was fine. But you do play Strike. It's an event where there's a bunch of kind of some of the who's who of the hobby ends up at this event. I will say our very own guild member, BJ from Board Game Gumbo took home the top prize.
Oh, good job, BJ.
He won the whole thing. He knocked me out. We played it at our little pool table. I finished third. He finished first. And he made it all the way and won. It was, I don't know what kind of levels of strategy he was using to come out on top of this, but good job, BJ. And thanks to Rolling Dice and Taking Names. That is, as mentioned, a consistent highlight of GenCon. And if you are following them and aware of the tickets and able to make it to GenCon, you absolutely need to go to this event. It's a ton of fun. Love the event. But after that event, I went and played a pair of games, one of which I won at the Strike Tourney with Blue Peg Pink Peg. Got to hang out with them as well as David from Man vs. Meeple. So did a little hangout post the old Spaghetti Factory and the Strike Tourney. We played 5211, which is from Next Move Games, and Medium. I'll talk quickly about 5211. This is a simple card game with the rules in the name of the game. You have 5 cards in hand. At just about all times in the game, the first round of a scoring round, you'll play 2 of those cards face down and then reveal. Then you'll draw to refill your hand. Then you'll play 1. Then you'll draw to refill, and then you'll play another one. How this will work is at the end of the round, if there are a certain number of Kododos, which are basically lizards, only the lizards score. Otherwise, it's the most common color, with the exception being that if there's too many of that color, it doesn't score. And if there's a tie between any 2, they don't score. Any cards remaining that have scored go into your score pile. You play this until the deck runs out. I've described almost the entire rule set of the game in about a minute. So if you're looking for a nice, simple, streamlined card game, check out 5211 from Next Move Games. But the other one, the one I really want to talk about, is Medium. Sean, have you heard anything about this game?
Yeah, I think I've seen it on Twitter here and there. Isn't it? It looks a lot like Just One conceptually, although it plays out a little bit differently.
We're going to play this right now.
Okay.
A version of it.
All right.
Name something that either first word that comes to mind or something you see around you in the room.
Just name it right now?
Yeah, one word.
Can it be a compound word?
No.
Why not?
I mean, it can be, but it's fine.
Sawhorse.
Sawhorse. Okay. Flour. Flower. That flour, not the baking one.
Sure.
So what we're going to do is on a count of 3, we're both going to say a word that is the medium, that is kind of between those 2 words. Do you have a word in mind for something that is going to?
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't make this easy on ourselves. Normally you would, by the way, someone would pick the first word and then someone else would pick the second word, but I'm just gonna, as a way of teaching the game, we have to come up with some kind of medium between flour and sawhorse.
I got one.
Okay. All right, ready?
How about you go first?
No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, but this is radio.
Okay. We're gonna go.
Mine's locked in.
All right, mine's locked in too.
Quick succession. You go, I go.
3, 2, 1. Sawdust.
Planter.
Well, that wasn't anywhere close. So if we'd gotten that right, we would have gotten points for a first attempt. We didn't get it right, so we now do a second attempt using those 2 new words without naming any of the first words. So, all right, now we're between
planter and sawdust?
Yeah, planter and sawdust. And I've got mine. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Are you prepared?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you go first this time. 3, 2, 1.
Craig Jig.
What? Dirt was mine. You are intentionally throwing this game, sir, and I don't appreciate it.
I probably would have said like nails or I don't know.
Well, okay. You get the point. Basically, you do that until you've taken 3 attempts. If you can get it before those 3 attempts, you score points. If you don't get any points. Those points sit between you and your teammate. Whoever has the most points at the end of a certain number of rounds wins. There are other player power cards that come into play with this, but that's really the gist of the game. I was pretty decent at this one, but I will say, anytime I can see a game inspire high fives, like when you get this right, whether it be a first attempt, second attempt, or third attempt, there is almost always a high five.
Yeah.
Or cheering. And when there's something that seems obvious that someone doesn't get, there is always a reaction at the table too. It's a fantastic party game.
No, it sounds fun.
Yeah, it's a perfect party game, in fact. So I would recommend it on that front because that was another contender for my game of the con. I won't tell you my favorite pairing, Sean. I will tell you my second favorite pairing, which was someone played bandage and I played salt in response to that. What word would you come up with from that?
Bandage.
And salt.
Pain.
No, I'm sorry. The correct answer was wound.
Okay.
Salt in the wound, bandage over a wound.
Sure. All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
anyway.
bad at this game.
Yeah, you're not great. You should work on your skills. So anyway, that was Medium. I now have that game. I have played it a couple of times since. It's fantastic. Strongly recommend Medium. And that is my first half of my Gen Con recap. Back to you, Sean.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'll talk about a game that I first mentioned in the SeanCon episode, and I specifically said, I'm not going to be able to go into too much detail at that time, and I talk about it in a future episode. Hey, it's that future episode. And that game is Pipeline, designed by Ryan Courtney, and let's see, published by, look at my notes here. Oh, it's Capstone. I thought I swore off them.
Yep. Too late.
Man. Well, this will be the last Capstone game I ever talk about.
I think that's unlikely.
How dare they? So Pipeline is fantastic. Pipeline right now is my top contender for game of the year. So in Pipeline, it's a, I'd say medium heavy, bordering on heavy, or medium heavy economic game. There's also some route building. And basically over the course of 3 years, you are trying to get the most money, and also gain value in building this pipe network, because you're trying to refine different types of oil. And so each year there are a number of actions. There's less actions as the years go on. And you're going to be able to buy the different types of oil from the market. There's places to buy crude oil. There's places to sell refined oil to the market, and you can even buy back some of the refined oil. There's a couple different places where you can go buy these different pipelines. There are places where you can get extra storage tanks for your player board to store more oil as it's in its crude state or as in its different refined states. There are places where you can get contracts, where you can go get loans. There are these oil refining machines that you can purchase. And basically you're taking certain actions to purchase the different types of oil, run them through your pipelines to refine them to higher grades of oil, to then fulfill the contracts and do other things. It's pretty tight. It's pretty crazy. It's incredibly frustrating. My first game of this, I had probably the most AP I have had in a long time. Like, just so much AP, so stressed out. My AP has gone down game to game. I've played it, I think, 5 times now. But it's still super stressful and still super tight. So the really cool thing about this is you're building these pipelines. You're pulling them from the main board. There's different spots to buy them. And each pipeline has, or each tile rather, has different shapes of pipes of different colors. And you're creating this pattern where they're kind of snaking around, and you're trying to maximize the segments of like colors. But then you also may want multiple different pipelines of the same color, because you could only ever send one oil at a time through one segment at a time, basically. And you're just trying to maximize your actions here. And man, this game is so good. There's also some asymmetric powers. There are these upgrade cards that you can buy, and it gets kind of mean because you're able to, when you buy an upgrade, you lock out that upgrade for the rest of the year, so no one else can buy that upgrade. But you also get to just lock down another type of upgrade just because, to cut people off of other availability. It is incredible. Hands down, as of now, my game of the year. I'm curious to see where Tapestry is going to fit in. We don't have this in the news, but Stonemaier Games just announced a Civ game called Tapestry that is supposed to be similar to, or draw from, Russian Railroads, Mombasa, and A Feast for Odin, which is all very much my wheelhouse. And Alex, you've played it, but you can't say anything about it, correct?
I at risk of the Stonemaier Games hit squad coming through my door and making sure I never speak about any game again, let alone a Stonemaier game, I will refrain from giving any additional information on components or gameplay of Tapestry.
Okay. So you think it's terrible. Got it.
I didn't say that.
So you think it's great. Message received.
I didn't say that either. I said nothing one way or the other about that game.
I'm very curious about that game because, one of my favorite designers, one of my favorite publishers, and then it's referencing a bunch of games that I love. But anyway, up to this point, I mean, hands down, Pipeline is my game of the year. It is incredible, and I'm constantly thinking about it. Played it at 2, 3, and 4 players. Doesn't have a solo mode. I'd like there to be a solo mode. That'd be pretty cool. 3, I think, is the sweet spot. And Matt was not here last week, or at Wednesday night. Yeah, he wasn't here last night, and I was super bummed because he has the copy of Pipeline.
You don't have one yourself?
I don't have one, no.
Well, that seems like a real shame.
Yeah, it is a real shame. But anyway, that is Pipeline from Ryan Courtney and my new arch nemesis, Capstone Games.
Awesome. Well, just 3 more games to run through with you. If I'm forgetting a game, I'm so sorry. I forgot the game. So for the next part of my Gen Con recap, let's start with Nick from the Albuquerque Game Group, who was out there for Gen Con and enjoyed spending time with him and Marissa and his friend, whose name is eluding me in this very moment, and I'm very sorry.
Ray.
It's Ray.
Yep.
Definitely Ray. Definitely remembered that it was Ray. Played some Beat Saber on Ray's VR setup, which is always a ton of fun. I love Beat Saber. Beat Saber's great. But that's not a board game. So let's talk about board games. We played 2 board games that evening. One of them was War with the Evil Powermaster. That is a choose-your-own adventure game where you are a space crew trying to thwart the plans of the Evil Powermaster. And it feels like you're playing through one of these choose-your-own adventure books. Sean, have you played anything in this series? I think this is the second or third game in this series of games.
No, I have the first one upstairs, and it just hasn't been played.
So the game is an interesting experiment in, if you were to take the story, the intriguing story and experience of Above and Below, and strip away most all bits of interesting gameplay, could it still hold up as an interesting experience? Because that's effectively what happens here. In this specific game, I don't know if this is true for the rest of the series, you each have a crew member. So one of them is a one-eyed robot, and then you have a diplomat, and then you have a space captain, and then you have, I think, a navigational officer of some kind who really enjoys snacks. And it plays out like a choose-your-own-adventure book. You start somewhere. You start with the story. You're trying to catch the Evil Powermaster. You'll get options. You choose an option to go down. The narrative drifts in that direction. And then oftentimes you will have challenges, and you pick one of your crew members to attempt the challenge. And the challenge could be a challenge of strength or diplomacy or piloting. And what you're going to do in response to that challenge is roll a d6 and then add the modifier of your character. And depending on the state of the game, at the very beginning of the game, challenge requirements to meet are 4. It might be as high as a 6. Again, you're rolling a d6. You may have some bonuses or modifiers or things, certain items that you acquire that can help you do better on those challenges or worse. The game forces you to use different characters at different times. So, for instance, you have to use all 4 characters before you can use another character a second time. If you fail a challenge, something bad usually happens, or the Evil Powermaster gets closer to victory. There's the Evil Powermaster track. Or if you succeed, you might advance the story or gain points towards defeating the Evil Powermaster. We fumbled around and did very, 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 very poorly in the early going. We kind of recovered a little bit late, but it was already pretty clear we weren't going to win, and we didn't win. The story itself was charming and really well written. If you're a fan of Futurama, this had kind of overtones of that and felt like someone who was a fan of that. It felt like a fun play on the choose-your-own-adventure things. It felt like a choose-your-own-adventure book. It had that kind of campiness and corniness, and I appreciated it for that reason. The game itself is not. There's not much to it. There's just not much game there. That being said, if you're looking for a fun experience, this is a good route to go because we had a ton of fun. We laughed a ton playing this, and to me, that's oftentimes just as important. It's part of why I enjoy playthroughs of something like Tales of Arabian Nights, which it has about that same level of gameplay, but plays much shorter than that. So that's War with the Evil Powermaster.
Let me ask you something real quick. Is it important? Is it important to you that there be a strong distinction between a game and an experience?
This is, in fact, a game. You're still making decisions. You are still making decisions. There's a scoring mechanism, Well, we'll find out later exactly how much I care about that distinction. Hint, it's not a lot. So that's War with Evil Powermaster. Next one I'll talk about is one that I played first with Nick and that whole crew, and that is, Sean, I don't know if you're familiar with this piece of early 2000s nostalgia, Trogdor, the board game.
Yeah, a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit.
It was after your time, I should say. Not before your time. For fans of Homestar Runner, the website, and Strong Bad and Trogdor, which there's, I think, a small chunk of the listenership that would be. This, to me, though, was a bit of an obsession when I was of the right age. Trogdor was just a single episode of an email web video referencing Trogdor, the Burninator, from Strong Bad. There was just a song, and it was catchy, and it was, in those days, I guess, a little viral. Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants. Anyway, just a little small piece. Anyway, they took that and they turned it into a game. It was a wildly successful Kickstarter campaign, I think, that we discussed before, and I actually played the game itself. This is a cooperative game where you are all Trogdor. You will activate him using one action card on your turn and try and move Trogdor around the board, avoiding knights and archers while burning down peasants and their thatch roof cottages. Anyway, that's the gist of the game. It is lovingly dipped in theme. They took just about every single second of that video and turned it into something, whether it be the alternate drawings of Trogdor becoming other player pieces, or a card that references consummate V's, which, again, key part of the video, but if you didn't see it, won't make any degree of sense. The gameplay itself is great. It's silly for what it needs to be. It's a lighter side cooperative game. It's difficult. There's a cool mechanic in it where if you lose the game, quote unquote, lose the game, you can try and execute a perfect table flip victory by basically sending Trogdor running around the board on a burning rampage. Honestly, the best part of this whole thing for me, though, Sean, was at Greater Than Games booth at GenCon. They had the brothers who came up with Trogdor and Strong Bad and Homestar Runner, the brothers chap, demoing the game. And the guy who does Strong Bad's voice was in a peasant outfit that was on fire, not actually on fire, but just had like a little flame on it, and then holding a Strong Bad puppet to demonstrate. It was the single greatest Gen Con moment I've ever had.
Huh.
It was fun. Now, if you don't know the videos and don't care, it's going to mean absolutely nothing to you. It's going to mean nothing. To me, it was great. And I immediately bought a game afterwards. I couldn't not buy a game after having that experience. The game itself is fine. It's a great little cooperative game, and certainly good for newer players, easy enough rules. If this is something you care about, they did it really, really well. If it's something you don't care about, feel free to continue not caring. So that's Trogdor. The last one I'll talk about is QE. Sean, this is a game that I believe you've played, yes?
I have, yeah. I played it at Empire a couple weeks ago. Matt has a copy.
So this edition of it is being published by Board Game Tables, and QE is short for quantitative easing, which I don't have the economic background readily available to discuss the exact implications of what that means, but effectively it's when governments decide to print a whole bunch of money.
Right.
To help recover from an economic crisis of some kind. So in QE, you are printing a whole bunch of money. Basically, a business will come up for bid, and you can bid $10 on that business, or you can bid $10 billion on that business. The game does not care as long as it's a whole number. Whoever wins that amount or wins that bid, these are secret bids, by the way, that number will get written on the back of whatever you won and put face down in front of you. You'll then mark off your scores. At the end of the game, whoever spent the most money over the course of the game, though, immediately loses. And everyone else, whoever has the highest number of points after that, wins. This is one of those rare games, Sean, that I think you can play sober and really enjoy, or play drunk and really enjoy. It has potential for both of those situations to work. I know this because BJ was a little tipsy while he was playing this, and I was stone cold sober. And it was, I think, enjoyable for both of us. He was clamoring for his group to get a copy. I was able to get a copy. I know the Board Game Tables folks, so I have a copy myself. This game is fantastic, and if I'd played it more, quite frankly, this would maybe have been in consideration for top 10 of all time.
Really?
I liked it that much.
Really?
Yeah, it was my game of the con. It was my game of the con.
It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I think the interesting thing though is there is a bit of, I guess, a pacing mechanism, for lack of a better word. You take turns with one player starting off the bid that's public.
Right.
And so that kind of sets the scale. Plus, like, the first bid of the game kind of sets the scale. If you put it up for $5 or $5 billion, you kind of know what scale you're playing with here. And it's really interesting because there's set collection. So you're trying to, like, you get certain points for collecting companies of the same industry, companies of certain nationalities. And I really enjoyed it. And what I said was, it is, for lack of a better analogy, it is competitive economic the mind.
Yeah, I could see that.
Whereas the mind is cooperative. There's competition here, but it's just sort of, you're just put in whatever. It's really interesting. I really liked it quite a bit. I'd probably call it a high 5, and it sounds like it's a 6 for you.
Yeah, it's a straight 6 off of the first play. I need to play it more, but again, that combination of it's versatile enough to play in both of those kind of groups. It's also simple enough to teach to newer gamers. Honestly, it's a fantastic title. I'm excited to play more of that game.
Yeah, I will say that the one play I had of it, I came in, I don't know, second or third. I think we played with 5 players, but I did manage to screw over Eugene, which was the highlight of the game. I was in control of the last bid, and I knew he needed it, and so I set the bid way higher than I wanted to spend, and he totally went for it and overbid, and he got knocked out. So I was happy.
Whoops. Anyway, that's QE, currently being released by Board Game Tables. Back over to you, Sean.
All right, well, I will talk about one of the expansions, the new expansion for Roll for the Galaxy. Again, I briefly mentioned this on the Sean Con episode, but I've played it since then as well. Roll for the Galaxy is fantastic. It is part of the Race for the Galaxy family, but this is the dice version of it, and we've reviewed it. We've talked about it. It's been Roll for the Galaxy has been a 6 for me for quite a while. And you are basically trying to build these settlements, these worlds and these developments to produce goods on them and turn them in for points. And there's all of these special abilities that you're gaining over time. And there's this dice manipulation and mitigation that's really cool. What this does, the Rivalry Expansion, is it adds 2 different ways to play. There's the deal game and the orb game. I didn't play the deal game, but I did play the orb game. Both of them use these big chunky dice that have removable faces because you can customize them, kind of like Dice Forge. And so every round that you're rolling the dice, you're also rolling your 1 alien orb die. And it has a couple different faces, 2 of 3 faces. It has a $sign face, which is what's going to allow you to upgrade your die facing on that one die. It has, I can't remember the other 2 faces, but they're pretty straightforward. One of them gives you an extra reassign, which is a dice mitigation. And the other one gives you, I think, an explore bonus, which is what can give you a little bit of money, but also lets you see new tiles for new worlds and developments for you to build. But then you're able to spend money, like I said, to upgrade the die facings, and you can go in a bunch of different directions. There's a development path that you can go down, which are going to make you or give you discounts on building developments. There's a production path you can go down, which is going to let you produce on worlds in much more efficient ways. This is super interesting. So not only does it add a bunch new home worlds, which are like the starter tiles, and a bunch other new developments and worlds and things like that, but this gives it just a whole nother direction to play. And I've experimented quite a bit with this. I've done games where I haven't paid too much attention to the die, games where I've gone heavy into upgrading the die at first. This was great. I love Roll for the Galaxy, and I've played all of the expansions. I think it's just the 2. Is it 2? I think it's just the 2. And it just keeps adding more and more stuff that I like. And it's kind of a pricey expansion. It's like $60 or so for the expansion. But it's well worth it. I'm definitely going to pick up a copy because I think it's fantastic. Have you had a chance to play Roll for the Galaxy in a while, Alex?
Not anytime soon, and never any of the... Maybe one of the expansions? Maybe. It's been a while. I like that game. I wasn't as in love with it as you are, but I like that game.
Maybe give it a 5? I feel like you give it a 5.
I feel like I give it a 5. That sounds right.
Yeah. Roll for the Galaxy. Love it. And that's going to do it for me.
Cool.
So real quick, Alex, final thoughts on this year's GenCon. I mean, it sounds like you got to do a little bit more than in years past since you were usually working the con.
A little bit more. We had a big release, which tied me up pretty significantly. Raiders of Viking Land, which I was demoing not just during hours, but after hours. That show always exhausts me, though. There's a ton of people. There's a ton of folks walking around. There's big expectations and stress, and it's as a publisher, I would not call it a fun show. Sure. I would not call it a fun show, but a good show, and it's fun finding more and more of these secret little open gaming spaces to play in. I didn't go to a single event other than the Strike tournament, so yeah, that's Gen Con. It's certainly worth going to at least once if you're into this hobby in any degree of seriousness.
Cool.
Yeah. I will say that my favorite booth this year, which has briefly supplanted the Exploding Kittens kitten vending machine, was what was that? Oh, it was an old Blockbuster store. They basically set up a Blockbuster store as a booth for the game Blockbuster.
Interesting.
Including the old computer monitor, like the worn down yellowing computer monitor, and the uniforms. So that was definitely a blast from the past. It was really well done. So yeah, that's my Gen Con. You want to talk about news?
Let's do it.
Let's head on over to the news desk. All right, first up in news, this one has been memed to death since it happened. Absolutely memed to death. BGG has a new look, and gamers were mixed about it. Basically, according to Aldi, Scott Alden, the owner of the website, BGG has been in existence since January 2000, and over those 19 years, we've changed the logo only one time. With the site coming up on its 20th anniversary in 2020, we thought it time to reflect how BGG presents itself to the world of gamers. And part of it being, look, not all gamers wear glasses. The old logo wore glasses. Not all gamers are dudes, so they made something that was, basically an orange flame. The hope being that you could maybe see yourself in the logo, no matter who you are, or you could kind of see the flame burning for the passion that people have for games. Change is not always popular, Sean, and this one spurred a big reaction, mostly on social media. And
I don't know that there was any negative reaction to the new look of the site itself.
Right.
More so the logo. And the new site, I think, looks fantastic. They've kind of been previewing it or previewing a version of it for a while on like the game pages.
Right.
But now it's site wide, it looks like. But yeah, it's a weird logo. Like I recognized it immediately as just a flat orange image of the former logo. But it's definitely weird.
Yeah. Look, I think the site certainly needed an update, and I think the look of the site certainly needed an update, and I think the logo needed an update. And is this one necessarily perfect? Probably not, but it didn't bother me so much that I really cared that much about it. Plenty of people freaked out about this. Like my favorite one was the Who's That Pokemon? And they had the silhouette, the BGG silhouette in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, change happens. Get over it. It's fine. This next bit of news, I think, is really interesting, though, Sean. And I saw this story, and I was wondering if you're going to throw it in there, and I'm glad you did. Wil Wheaton is suing Geek and Sundry. Geek and Sundry being the host of the Tabletop series. What is going on here with this one, Sean?
So if you'll recall, Wil Wheaton and Felicia Day, they started Geek and Sundry, a while back, and then eventually got bought by Legendary Entertainment, and basically, I think Wil Wheaton has had pretty much parted ways with Geek and Sundry. I think Felicia Day had parted ways with them too, and basically back in 2015, and this is some reporting from the Hollywood Reporter. Legendary hired Wil, and I can call him Wil because I've met him and hung out with him. So,
it's true. He's a cool dude.
He's very cool. Hired him to create, write, executive produce, and host the Titan's Grave RPG show, and he would get $50,000 and 50% of the profit from the series. But hold on, the net profit, not the gross profit, which I think is an interesting distinction. So Legendary would be able to distribute the show, but Wil was supposed to be consulted.
Was in the loop on that, yeah.
Was supposed to be in the loop, right? Supposed to have, I guess, some kind of input. And basically, they've done some licensing agreements with Hulu, Pluto TV, and Sinclair Broadcasting. And he was not in the loop about that. And he's not sure what he's entitled to. So he filed suit in Los Angeles County Superior Court. And he's saying, look, we need an auditing. I need an audit of their books to know what they've gotten from these licensing deals. The interesting thing is, because it's net profit, you're excluding various expenses and all sorts of things. So it might be a much smaller piece of the pie. Wil Wheaton saying that it's upwards of $100,000. Who knows? Because Legendary refused to let him audit the books, and so they're basically asking the court, "Hey, order them to open the books to us so we can have a neutral third party audit the books and figure out what he's owed." It's interesting, and these are allegations. I haven't read the complaint. I looked for the complaint, couldn't find it. Typically, they have 30 days. Legendary will have 30 days to answer the complaint, and we'll hear their side of the story. Who knows what that's going to be, but definitely thought it was interesting. Did you ever watch any of the Titan's Grave stuff?
Don't know anything about it. Had not heard of it before hearing about this story.
So I hadn't watched any. I had planned to because it just sounded interesting, but yeah. That's it's always unfortunate to see these kinds of things happening. And again, we don't know what Legendary side of the story is. I'm sure they'll have their lawyers craft up a response. Crafty lawyers and everything.
Yeah. I look, I think the biggest implication for gamers is if anyone was holding out hope of a tabletop being brought back to life with Wil Wheaton, I would not hold those tight anymore. Sorry.
Well, but he could always do another show in theory.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be.
And by the way, I hope he does, because that show meant so much to the hobby.
Yeah, it was great.
And honestly, it helped some smaller companies become much bigger companies. I say that as the beneficiary of that in a sense, because Monochromatic Wolf had one of its games featured on tabletop, and that was a big part of what had that game be so successful. That video has more than 1 million views. There is, I love all of the content creators we work with to death. There is not a location that can get that kind of viewership typically within the hobby.
Right.
So I hope he does something with that, because I think it would draw a big audience and continue helping to grow the hobby. But it probably won't be called tabletop.
Probably not.
So, yeah. Let's head on over to Kickstarter, Sean. And I saw this one, too. And this one was hot stuff this week.
Yeah.
Sleeping Gods from Red Raven Games. Sean, what about this one caught your eye?
Well, it's interesting, Alex, because I've kind of... soured isn't the right word. Ryan Lockett, who runs Red Raven Games, he designs the games, he does the art. He is a powerhouse. He is prolific. I think there's few in the industry that could match what he does by himself essentially. And I've owned just about every Red Raven game. I enjoy them all quite a bit. But as time has gone on, they've proven to be a little bit too light for my tastes. I've gotten rid of some of them. I saw the Ancient World update, which looks interesting. I think it needed an update, and I'm going to give it a shot. But I've gotten rid of Near and Far. I've gotten rid of Islebound, all games that I enjoyed, and games I would still play and enjoy. But I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play them here at the house. Empire has most of them, so I don't need to own them. I got to clear up some space, so I got rid of them. All right. That all being said, I am very interested in this game. Very interesting. This is The Wandering Sea. The gods have brought you here, and you must wake them if you wish to return home. So this is a campaign-style game, but you actually need to play multiple campaigns to get through a bunch of what's going on here. It has a storybook, kind of similar to Above and Below and Near and Far. And it takes place, though, not in Ryan Laukatt's like fantasy setting that he has, but it's more of a kind of a pulp 1920s steampunkish era where you're riding around on the steamship, the Manicore, and it's cooperative, and you're exploring mysterious islands, meeting new characters, and seeking out the totems of the gods so that you can return home. And so there's this huge book that has this interconnected map. And so as a group, you're moving around on the map. And when you go, off the map on the north, it'll say, turn to this page to see where this map continues. There is kind of a zoomed out map that shows everything together. And you're able to make notes on that, showing like you've completed this area here, or you need to come back to this area that has a particular keyword, or, oh no, there's danger over here, don't come back over here. It looks really interesting. And you're manning this crew of, there's 8 people on this ship, and they all contribute in different ways. It almost seems like a Red Raven version of like an Eldritch Horror, sort of, but probably a little bit simpler compared to, say, an Eldritch Horror. But this looks to be heavier than a lot of his games, and I could be mistaken on that. Just kind of going off what I've seen from the Kickstarter page and also the Man vs. Meeple overview. But you're leveling up your crew. You're completing a campaign that takes 10 to 20 hours, and like I said, you need to play multiple different campaigns, I guess, in order to gain access to all of the information from the game. It looks pretty nuts. And even like the combat is usually pretty stripped down in his games if they have them. And here you're fighting these monsters, and there's like different spots on the cards to affect their legs and their head and their torso. And like, it looks a lot more involved than a lot of Red Raven games. And so I'm pretty intrigued. I'm on the fence as to whether or not I'm going to pick up a copy or not, or just play it at Empire, but I don't know. We'll see. What have you been thinking? Have you taken a look at this?
I have taken a look at it, and the price point drove me away. It's $70 for the base game, and then $100 with the expansion. And I really want to play this. I don't know if I want to pony up that much to play this, and I know within St. Louis there are enough folks who will get this that I will probably get a chance to try it regardless. Right. But I've had fantastic experiences with Ryan Laukatt's games. They haven't found a lot of staying power with me for whatever reason. Right. I'll really enjoy them. The height of the play experience will be really high, but then for whatever reason they'll kind of drift away, and that's a shame because I really love the stories that he tells in his games, and I think this will be no exception. The promise of this is probably very much real. Red Raven can absolutely deliver on what they say they can deliver on with this, especially given the pledge support already received. It's going to be a fantastic experience. If any of what Sean just said appeals to you, or you've had a good experience with a Red Raven game in the past, I would definitely strongly consider backing this one. It's Suzanne, Duke Suzanne played this one at GenCon and said it was her favorite experience of the whole show.
Wow.
So it's likely to be pretty dang good.
So one of the things that interested me was, even though it's a campaign game, it makes mention that you can have people kind of jump in and out pretty easily, which is appealing to me if I'm going to run a campaign game, because I just don't have the time to get together the same group of players to go through the whole thing. So that sounds kind of interesting. It reminds me a little bit of The Seventh Continent, which I've only played the one scenario, and I really want to get that back to the table. But yeah, this ends August 29th, so there's some time to back this. And like you said, it's already gotten some tremendous pledge support. It's at $450,000, Alex.
That's the kind of support you get this early on when you have the kind of track record that they have. And Red Raven Games, say what you want about them, they are consistent. Their games are gorgeous and oftentimes fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a look at Sleeping Gods from Red Raven Games, and that's a look at the news. La roar. La 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 roar.
What, Alex?
Yes. Yes, Sean.
What are you doing?
I'm practicing my dragon scales. Dragon Scales from Arcane Wonders is a game designed by Richard Launius. It just released at GenCon in Dragon Scales, which is not at all about singing and practicing scales where you roar at the end of them. You're playing a formidable villain. Your sinister conquests are innumerable, but there's one foe that even you cannot vanquish alone. Arcarex, the Lord of Dragons. A hoard of treasure beyond imagining waits to be claimed. The scales of this dragon are more valuable than any amount of gold or gems. Will your loose alliance be able to take down Arcarex? Or will this great dragon's rage consume you all? And that is Dragon Scales. Not at all about singing, Sean. Fun fact.
But I'm sure that, Alex, when you play it, you'll make it all about singing nonetheless.
Yep, I will find an opportunity to sing every single card. So this is a game you're going to want to play with me.
So even though this came out at Gen Con, we're looking for a general release in the middle of September. So be sure to check out your friendly local game store or your favorite online retailer to pick up a copy of Dragon Scales from Arcane Wonders.
It's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders.
So Alex, I have a question for you.
Yes?
Is it possible that Berkey has cloned himself like Michael Keaton in the movie Multiplicity?
I have not seen that movie.
Okay, assume it's a movie about someone cloning themselves. So there's a bunch of different versions of themselves. Has Berkey done that? Is that what's happened?
I don't think so, but he is a pretty busy guy, so it wouldn't surprise me.
He must have been like at 5 different booths at once during Gen Con, right?
He was at the Monochromatic Wolf booth. I know that much. He was at a bunch of other booths too.
You're really helping play this bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he was everywhere. I can't believe how many Berkeys I saw.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Game Toppers had quite the presence at some of your favorite game publisher booths, showing off the awesome tabletoppers that enhance your home tabletop experience. Now, unfortunately, Alex, the Kickstarter is over, but you can late pledge. So if you're looking for an affordable, high-quality tabletopper, you can get that still if you go over to GameToppersLLC.com, but you have to hurry. August 25th is the deadline to do a late pledge. So hurry, because they unlocked like 40 plus stretch goals. There's tons of options in terms of mats you can put on the table, whether it's just, a plain, nice red or green mat, or whether there's terrain and cool art, all sorts of options for you to choose from over at GameToppersLLC.com.
GameToppersLLC.com.
Good addition.
It's a tradition that we started with the very, very first episode of the Dukes of Dice, and it's one that will continue today. Alex and Sean's top 10 games of all time.
So, Alex, this is a tradition that you wanted to murder in its sleep.
Yep, to be clear, and this was a factor in how I made my list, aka at the very last second as we were setting up to record this. I just don't know if it's that interesting. I'm just not sure it's that interesting, Sean. because in the early days, I was fairly new to this. So my taste would change pretty decently. I'd get enough new plays in that my taste would shift dramatically. It feels like I'm drifting more towards experiential games, and I think my list does reflect that. But, 7 of the 10 games are the same, ultimately. There are 3 newcomers to this list.
Okay. Well,
I wanted to do this every other year instead of every year.
Sure. And I think, we did this in the first episode to give listeners an idea of what we like. And I think it's kind of a good, if there is a new listener to the show, they could go back to the most recent Duke-iversary episode to kind of get that sense in a nutshell. And my list is pretty interesting. There's four brand new games, and there's some interesting movement. There's some heartbreakers here, Alex. Some real heartbreakers. So
I have a guess as to what one of them will be, by the way.
What one of what?
Which one has fallen off the list that is a heartbreaker for you?
Oh. Well, let's make some predictions. So what are your predictions? What will have fallen off?
I think, was Matinai on your list last year?
It was.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
Matinai was number 7.
Yeah, it's gone now. It's not on the list anymore.
Okay.
That's
All
my
right.
prediction. I don't have any other predictions. Pipeline may have a shot at the list.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Let me think. What else? There will be several GMT games.
Okay. Last year there were 2 GMT games.
There will be more than that. There will be 3 or 4.
Well, I did mention on Twitter, because I kind of teased my list. I mentioned there
I
are
did think you were going to call me out for that.
There are 3 GMT games.
Dang it. I added the or 4 just to make it seem like I didn't actually know. To be clear, for listeners, we haven't shared our lists with each other yet, but Sean did do some Twitter teasing.
I did. Yeah. So I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this right now. Pipeline is not on my top 10.
Okay.
It is a 6. It's a hands down 6. And could it be in the future? Yeah, maybe. What's interesting, and I'll tell you this right now, there are 0 capstone games in my top 10.
Really?
And however, that being said, I think Capstone probably has more 6s
than any other publisher. Okay.
I think so.
Well, GMT has 3 at least.
Well, that's true. But yeah, Capstone is, I don't know, it's more of the consistency there. Although now, again, they're my arch nemesis now, so.
All right. Well,
forget them.
Good luck keeping that up. Hey, honorable mentions. You want to start with honorable mentions?
Well, do we want to go over our list from last year?
No, not really.
Because you don't have your list from last year.
I had it, but I actually edited that one.
Okay, jeez. So I've got your list from last year, Alex.
Oh, thanks. How considerate.
So number 10 was Lords of Vegas. Number 9 was Fog of Love, which I think that's going to go up. Or be better on your list.
Okay.
Number 8 was Castles of Burgundy, which I think is going to be on your list, but I think you should get rid of. But I think you're afraid to get rid of it.
Okay.
When's the last time you played Castles of Burgundy?
It's been a while.
Okay. So I think it doesn't belong on your list anymore.
Cool.
But you're afraid to get rid of it.
All right.
Now you're gonna change something just
I'm not changing. I'm not touching my keyboard.
7 was Isle of Skye. 6 is Patchwork, which it's probably going to stay around there. Motainai. So if you are predicting that Motainai is falling off mine, I'm wondering if it's fallen off yours then.
I don't know.
4 is Flip Ships. That's staying. 3 is The Mind, and I think it'll probably hold somewhere around there. 2 is Scythe. I think that's still going to be up there. And then 1, of course, is Baseball Highlights 2045, which is going to be your number 1 game of this year.
First mention.
My prediction.
Hey, Sean, spoiler. It's still my number 1 game. Like, that hasn't changed.
Well, okay. That's my prediction. Who knows?
No, that's true. I'm just telling you, it hasn't changed.
Oh, you're just, okay, great. You can at least give us, create some doubt.
No, that's not going to, everyone knows that's not going to change. It's going to take something pretty special to unseat that game.
Okay. So for me, last year, my number 10 was Gloomhaven.
That's not going to be on the list this year.
Okay. Number 9 is Le Havre.
Okay.
Number 8, Terraforming Mars.
Okay.
7 Motainai.
By Motai by.
6 Zolkin.
Mm-hmm.
5 Scythe.
Okay.
4 Combat Commander.
Mm-hmm.
3 Castles of Burgundy. 2 Twilight Struggle. And number 1 was Kemet.
Okay.
So, and what I will say is, what I normally do is I looked at my list from last year, and those are all games that are in consideration. I look at games that we've reviewed, games that I've added to my collection. I look at the top games from the last 2 years, kind of do a search for it on BGG, kind of go through that. And I come back with about 20 games. And I did a couple things on PUBG, which is this ranking software.
Mm-hmm.
I did it 3 times, Alex.
Oh boy.
Just to make sure that things were where they needed to be. I said it before, I kind of use this metric of, okay, I look at 2 games, I can never play one of them ever again, which is the game I'm going to play. And it's a tough decision. And then I kind of fiddled with the list and I came up with my final list. So honorable mentions, Alex.
Honorable mentions for me. I have 5 that I'll list here.
Okay.
Keyforge had honorable mention consideration, but did not make the cut.
Okay.
Isle of Skye, no longer on the list.
All right.
That one has fallen off, but was still one I considered strongly. Hanamakoji creeping back into the mix. It's just from sheer number of plays and how well that thing has held up. I should note, by the way, it's hard to call it a 6, but Downforce, for some reason, I've considered the last 2 years anyway, so maybe it actually is a 6. I played that game way more than my initial review would have indicated. Like, I played that game a ton. So, not actually an honorable mention, but just thought I'd mention that there. Pulsar 2849, honorable mention. Fantastic Vladimir Suchi game. And the stunning honorable mention for you, Sean. This will stun you. Fog of Love.
Really?
Just off the list.
Wow.
Just off the list. Primarily because of lack of plays.
Interesting.
I haven't played it as much with Abby as I expected I would. I still love the game, and I love the concept, and I love the theme, and I love everything about it. But lack of plays sometimes means something. Sometimes it doesn't, as we'll talk about later in the list, maybe. So those are my honorable mentions. What about you?
So for honorable mentions, Pipeline was an honorable mention. Also Arkwright. So there's 2 capstone games right there. Antiquity from Splotter was an honorable mention. And then pick a brass. Any brass will do was also one. There are 2 more that I've ranked here. These are 2 upsets, Alex. And I'm like, really? Is this really happening? And this is partly what made me redo the list a 3rd time, because I was just like, this can't be right. So coming at number 12, Alex, number 12, Zolkin, the Mayan calendar.
Oh, that is a heartbreaker. From number 1 to off the list.
Yeah, so it has been number 1 for a while, but it's been on the list since the beginning. Yeah. This is for the 5 previous years. It was number 1 at least 2 years, I think. And it's gone. It's still
close.
Still number 12.
Yeah,
that's still pretty good. And I still love it, and it's incredible. But it's a bit of a heartbreak. And then number 11, which I think is gonna upset a lot of people, Alex, Terraforming Mars. Just got edged out.
That's still 11 on a list is still pretty good.
11's pretty good. It's
right.
Pretty good.
I didn't hear Motainai on that list, so I'm fearing that I might have been wrong.
We'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. Are you kicking this off or am I kicking this off?
Sure, I'll kick this off. So let's jump into it.
Number 10.
All right, Alex, my number 10 is the first GMT game to grace its presence on this list. Is that the way you say that? I don't know that it is. I'll move on. This is a game from, I think, 1997. Probably the oldest game on either of our lists, right? Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah, for sure.
No, never mind. No, it's not.
Something else? Okay.
No, it's not. Interesting.
Oh,
man.
If Magic the Gathering, maybe for you.
Well, that's not a board game, Alex.
All right.
Okay. So, 1997, designed by Ted Racier. Never know how to say his name. This is Paths of Glory, which is an incredible World War I game This is a card-driven game, so kind of like a Watergate, for example, or Twilight Struggle. One player is the central powers, the other player are the allied powers, and it starts off right in August 1914 with the Germans attacking, and you are just right in the middle of it. You are playing on the Western Front, you're playing on the Eastern Front, there's the Middle East map, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and man, this game is tense. It's all about hand management and playing the right cards at the right time. Do you play it for the event? Do you play it for the operations points? Are you setting up strategic attacks, or are you just sending people in to die into the meat grinder? This game is good. This game is long. Alex, you will never play this game. You will never sit through it. It can be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, but that time flies by. Rory and I have played this 5 times now in the last year and change, and it's always on the tip of our tongues as far as, hey, what are we going to do this month for our War Game Sunday? This week, we're going to play some Combat Commander, but we're ready to get back into Paths of Glory. This game is good. It is dramatic. It is, it's so good, Alex. This game is so good. And 1997, GMT keeps putting out, some updated editions. This deluxe edition just came out. I've actually purchased 2 copies of this game. I purchased it first at a Dice Tower Con in the Ding and Dent sale, and then when GMT P500, the deluxe edition, which has like a new map and it has a bunch of hard to find new cards, I bought it. So I bought this game twice. That's how much I love it. That's why it belongs on my top 10. So that's my number 10, Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory. Sean, I just literally did some shuffling as we were sitting here, which, shows you the sanctity of this list.
Yeah.
My game is a new to the lists game. I have never ranked this on a top 10, so it's a new to the list, but it's not brand new. This game came out in 2016, and it's a very healthy game. Sean, do you know the game I'm referring to?
Came out in 2016, and it's a healthy game?
It's a healthy game.
No.
Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game.
Oh, all right.
Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game, which I just glanced over at my shelf and I was like, oh man, I really love that game.
Wow.
In that slot was going to be what is now number 9. So there was a little bit of shuffling. It bumped off. I had Detective penciled in there.
Oh.
But then I realized, that's probably more an honorable mention. Maybe in the future. I need to play more cases to know for sure. Mr. Cabbagehead, I played enough to know for sure. I love. Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game, for folks who don't know, is at its core, weirdly enough, a solo game, though it does come with a 2-player mode. In Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game, you are trying to, build a garden. Each round, you'll have 3 card options. One of them you have to pay a B for. One of them you have to not do either, pay a B or take a B. And the other one you have to be able to take a B. If there isn't a B available in the hive to take, you can't take the card. If you don't have a B to pay, you can't take the card. You're trying to plant your garden, fill in this 3x6 grid of cards. How you do it, you'll get certain bonuses. So you can, if you build on either end, you'll have the promenade, or you'll have a mixed plot. You can go for these different things. But as you pick cards, some cards will have you flip neighbor tokens over. There are 4 different neighbors that you'll play with in the game. There's more neighbors to choose from, and those neighbors will mess with your garden in some way. They might take the highest vegetable number, or they might take the lonely vegetable, and you don't know which one's going to hit you until the very end of the round. This game is tricky. It's intense. It works great as a 2-player game. The art is charming, and you really feel the theme. You feel, Mr. Cabbagehead. There are all these other kind of vegetable embodiments. It's a fantastic game that I think, sadly, is pretty hard to find over here in the U.S. right now. Luda Creations, I think, is the original company that put it out. I don't know if it ever got a U.S. print run. I'm not sure.
I don't think it did. I have a copy of it. I haven't played it, but it was like a print and play.
Oh, that game's great, Sean. You need to play that game.
Okay.
I don't think it'll crack your top 10 list.
Yeah,
but it certainly cracks mine. Primarily, and this is a bigger factor in this list than it has been in the past, because Abby really likes playing this game. And yeah, that helps. I really love the game. I love the look of it. I love how it plays. It's simple with depth, beautiful art style. Mr. Cabbage Head's Garden, my number 10.
Number 9.
My number 9 is also new to this list, and it is my most played game of the year. And Sean, you already know what this game is because you done messed up, Sean. We're Doomed is my number 9 game of the year.
You're gross.
Sean, you messed up your first play experience. It soured you permanently on the game. I am convinced, and I will never forgive any of your friends for ruining this beautiful game for you. We're Doomed, for folks who haven't heard me talk about this in depth of late, is a game where, well, everyone's doomed. The planet's going to end in 15 minutes, and you have to get off the planet by throwing in resources and launching a rocket. I mentioned earlier that, and you mentioned this, Sean, this is a state of the player list oftentimes. Mm-hmm. This is very much a state of the player game for me. I value a good experience at the table. I value a game that makes you laugh. This game is not deep. Some might hardly call it a game, but it's a game where I don't care so much about the outcome, win or lose. I just care about whether there's a fun story that emerges from things. I had a moment in this game where someone threw a phone at another player, and that caused both of them to immediately get kicked out of the game. I've had moments in this game where a non-player won the game. I've had moments in this game where everyone switched places, and I switched places in such a way where it made it impossible for me to win the game. It's a fantastic experience. The event deck really makes this game. I think it's a must-play, especially at conventions. It is certainly group-dependent. It is certainly not deep, and if you are overly concerned about the win or lose part of things, you're doing it wrong. You are absolutely doing it wrong. And it was funny, BJ mentioned this in hearing the Sean Con recap, hearing you guys discuss strategies and optimal plays and all of that. Dead wrong. Not a thing. You are doing it wrong. So we're Doomed. My number 9. It's sort of in that category of the flash in the pan game that makes my list and may or may not be there in future years. We'll find out. Anyway, that's my number 9. We're Doomed.
All right. Fair enough. Well, my number 9 is a bit of a cheat, Alex.
Uh-oh.
So it's actually 2 games.
Oh, well, that's not fair.
Well, it's fine. So it's Roll for the Galaxy / Race for the Galaxy.
Nope, you got to pick one.
Nope.
Pick one.
I'm not.
Which one are you picking?
If you can pick We're Doomed, then I can put 2 awesome games together.
That's one game. By the strict structure of the list, I have picked just one game. And you, sir, have picked 2. And they are different games.
You spent all of 5 minutes coming up with your list. At least I put some thought and time into this, and I've got this. It's totally justified. And let me tell you why. Because there's enough similarity between the games. There's enough core principles between the games, and I play them both pretty regularly. So like Race for the Galaxy, we've been playing a ton of it on Wednesday nights at the end of the night. And I've been playing a ton of it on my iPad. Roll for the Galaxy comes out quite a bit. New expansions or not, it comes out a lot. I like Race for the Galaxy at like 2 or 3 players. Not crazy about it at 4. Roll for the Galaxy. Sorry, Race I like at lower player counts. Roll I like at higher player counts. I love both of these games. They're both fantastic. Just fantastic. Interestingly, Roll for the Galaxy was on my list in 2016. It was my number 10 game back then. And for a while, I had kind of shied away from the Race expansions. But now, they're great. All the expansions are great. Last night, we played Race for the Galaxy with a fan-made expansion that Chris did a print and play of. And it's just great. I love both of these games. They're both similar. And I think that if you can play one, you can play the other. And so, yeah. So sue me, Alex.
I won't. I'm not going to sue you.
Good.
But
I'm a lawyer. I know what I'm doing.
You have violated the sanctity of the list. I'm just saying.
Live with that.
All right.
So that's my number 9, Race / Roll for the Galaxy.
Number 8.
All right. On to number 8, which I have here on one of these lists in front of me, and I can't seem to find it. There it is. Oh, another newcomer to the list, Alex.
Oh.
And I was like, why has this never been on my list? Any iteration of it. It is kind of Dudes on a Map. And I've enjoyed this game for 10 plus years, probably longer, and it's Twilight Imperium, specifically 4th edition. Isn't that weird? Doesn't that seem like a game that would have been on my list?
Not necessarily.
Do you know me?
I know you. It's just not necessarily in the top 10 for you. I know you've enjoyed the experience, but maybe you enjoy it more now. So I think it's fine.
I think with 4th edition is incredible. So this is an epic space empire game where you and, maybe 5 friends, although I really like it at 4 players best, are a different asymmetric race. You are going out into this galaxy. You are settling and conquering other planets for their resources. You are building up different types of space fleets. There's politics, and there's a galactic senate or whatever you have to vote in. There's these technology trees, and you're building different technologies. Oh, this game is so good. And ultimately, it comes down to typically fighting it out, because there's a combat system kind of similar to Axis and Allies, where you're trying to roll on these D10s under a certain value, or over a certain value, excuse me. And it's just great. I've had just great play experiences, played it last at SeanCon, but we're playing this a lot more. 4th edition is coming out way more than 3rd edition ever came out. 4th edition is just such a streamlined version of this game, and it is a masterpiece. I love this game, and it's not hard to... I guess what kept off the list in the past was you really had to plan for like 10 hours, and you really don't need that much time. I mean, really, it can be done in like 5 to 6, maybe 7. Still an investment, but well worth it, and it's coming out a lot more. So that is my number 8, Twilight Imperium 4.
All right. My number 8 is Castles of Burgundy. And sorry, Sean, I can't let it go. Partly because we always play so many Feld games, and although I have yet to play Castles of Burgundy lately, it's one of those games that anytime I play a Feld game, I appreciate that game specifically that much more. I appreciate its brilliance. I appreciate how the actions interlock. I appreciate the tough and crunchy decisions you have to make constantly in that game. I appreciate that. The multiple paths to victory. I appreciate all of that stuff more and more and more the more I play Feld games that are really good but don't quite live up to that standard, which is, all of them. It's my favorite Feld game. So, yeah, I make no apologies for including this game on there. It's one of my favorites. It's very possible it'll show up later on your list, Sean. So, yeah, Castles of Burgundy, my number 8. Haven't played it recently, does not matter.
Number 7.
All right, number 7 marks the last point where my list is interesting. The last point. This is another new to my list game. And Sean, I know I gave you a bunch of nonsense for having 2 games in one for one of yours. But for mine, I have closer to 8 or 10 games in one for this next item on my list. But I think you'll agree this is fine. It's the Exit the Game series.
Okay. Yeah.
The Exit the Game series. This is, for folks who don't know, an escape room game in a box. Kennerspiel winner, I think 2 years ago now. Kennerspiel winner 2 years ago now. Yeah. This is an escape room in a box. And you are trying to get out. Not within necessarily an hour, but as quickly as you can. Working together with anywhere from 4 to probably no more than 4 friends. You should probably have about that number. That seems to be pretty perfect. It also works well as a couples game, which is another part of the reason it's so high on the list. But these have been, and I've played through 4 or 5 of them now. These have all been fantastic experiences. I love how nothing is wasted. Without giving away any spoilers for any particular game, they don't waste any part of the game. Any component bit that comes in that box is fair use. Whether it's the box lid, bottom, insert, any of that is all potentially fair game for solving puzzles in this game. And I think that's brilliant. I'm not bothered by the fact that it's disposable. I know for some gamers that's sacrilege. For me, I want a really good, memorable experience. And I've had some really good, memorable experiences with this one. Murder on the Orient Express, I'd specifically recommend. I thought that one was really good. Pharaoh's Tomb was a really well done one. And I have more ready to go. I have a Catacombs of Horror. I have a Secret Lab. I have a couple of others ready and waiting to play. These are a fantastic series of games. I hope they continue to make more and more and more of them. And it's exactly the kind of thing that I enjoy getting to the table these days. So Exit the Game series, my number 7. And again, the last point where my list is interesting.
But to be fair, was it ever interesting?
Wow.
I'm just saying, right now, I'm winning. Like, if there's a way to win at this top 10, I'm totally winning.
Cool.
Because my list is way better than
Good
yours.
job. Good job winning the list.
My number 7 was my number 3 last year, and a game that you just mentioned, Castles of Burgundy.
Hey!
So yeah, also my favorite Feld. And man, I played it on my iPad yesterday. Raquel and I played it in real life about 10 days ago.
Is there an iPhone version? Is there an iPhone app for this?
Yes. Yeah, there is.
Oh, I need to get that.
Yeah. It's great. Man, I love this game. It is just such an interesting puzzle. It looks like garbage. It's a terrible looking game, but it's just so good. It's so simple. You have 2 dice a turn, you roll them, you take a tile, or you place a tile you already have, or you sell some goods, or man, I just remember I got my copy in a math trade. And I remember coming home at lunch because I knew the package had arrived, and I set it up and I kind of just went through the rule book and I played it 2 players, and I was like 2 hours late getting back to work because I was just like, this game is amazing. And it is a fantastic game, and I love it. It's my favorite Feld. And it's fallen a couple spots, but still my number 7, Castles of Burgundy.
Number 6.
All
right. My number 6 has fallen a spot from last year, and it is Scythe from Stonemaier Games. Scythe is just such an incredible Euro resource management with a little bit of a dudes on a map feel, although that's really not the focus. And it's just such a great efficiency engine where you're just trying to maximize your actions. There's 4 different top actions you can choose from that let you harvest resources. They let you move your individual character and these big giant mechs that you've created, move them around. They let you trade. They let you do all sorts of things. But then you're also trying to pair it with these bottom actions. They're going to build the mechs or build or make your main actions more efficient by upgrading. And if you're just doing a top action every turn and every now and then a bottom action, you're going to lose. You've got to be efficient. You've got to do things in the right order. And just every time I just feel like it's a study in efficiency, and it's just such a great game. And it's going to be on your list too pretty soon. So
not pretty soon, but it will be on my list.
Well, okay. Well, it's going to be 3. It's going to stay at 3.
It was at 2 last year.
Was it at 2 last year?
Yeah, dog.
Oh yeah, it was at 2 last year. It's going to go to 3. It's going to go to 3.
Okay.
But yeah, this is hands down my favorite Stonemaier game. Big fan of everything that Jamie does over there. Scythe, it's just fantastic. So that is my number 6.
My number 6 of all time is a long-time member of my top 10 list, an oldie but a goodie, Matainai. It's a game that is unbelievably brilliant. This is a multi-use card game that you can win in an infinite number of ways. It is kind of a spiritual successor in ways to Glory to Rome, done by Carl Chuddick, who does fantastic stuff with multi-use cards. It's a brilliant game. It's a masterpiece of design, and it's also impossible to teach. Impossible to teach to people, and I wish it was easier to teach because it would probably be way higher on the list. It might even be close to supplanting my top game of all time, but that's sacrilege. We won't talk about that. It's hard to teach, and that barrier to entry makes it hard for me to play that game. I love it so much. It just never gets to the table. I wish it got to the table more. I need to play Mike Fitzgerald with this sometime soon. I need to play you at this sometime soon. I need to play this game sometime soon because I crave this game, and anytime I play it, I remember just how good it is. But man, there's a big barrier to entry with this one. I think it dropped off your list, but I'm not so sure now. We'll see. We'll see.
Let me ask, why do you think it dropped off my list?
Why do I think it dropped off your list?
Yeah.
I think your taste in games. I think your taste in games have trended more towards bigger, beefier experiences and away from smaller, shorter experiences.
Okay.
That's the thought. But I might be wrong. I'm usually wrong. So that's my number 6. It's Matai.
Number 5.
My number 5 is the first game I ever played with Abby. And it's also been on the list, I think, from the very beginning. I think this is the only game, Sean, that has been on all of my top 10 lists. I'd have to go back and look at this. It's Patchwork. It's Patchwork, Sean. Patchwork is fantastic. We just played it the other night. I have played this game recently. I love playing this game. Patchwork, for folks who haven't been exposed to it, is Uwe Rosenberg's 2-player quilt-making game. You have a bunch of polyomino, kind of multi-shaped kind of pieces out on the table, and you are either going to pick one of the 3 that are available for you to buy, or you're going to take buttons until it's no longer your turn. Turns work in this game kind of unusually in that it's sometimes you'll take 3 or 4 turns in a row because you haven't taken enough time to pass the person in front of you. You get certain incomes. Whoever has the most buttons wins. The game can be punishing. The game can be, it's almost never friendly, but it is brilliant. And it plays really well even now. It's one of those games that is just continue to hold up. And I haven't found anything that quite does the polyomino type of gameplay as well as this game does. Even Uwe himself has tried, and he hasn't come up with anything quite as elegant and perfect as this. So it still holds a pretty high spot on my list. Number 5, Patchwork.
And let me just clear up. It first appeared on your list in 2016, because I don't think it was out the year before that.
Oh, really? Was it that new?
Yeah, it's newish.
Wow. I guess, I don't know. It's just the hobby perception.
I think
2014, 2014 release date.
Okay. Yeah, we played it at the first Dice Tower Con we went to. So yeah, I think you had one list it could have been on that it wasn't.
Yeah. Anyway, that one flip-flops spots with Matai, and that's my number 5. Over to you, Sean.
All right, my number 5 was number 2 last year. The second game on the list that has Twilight in the title, and that's Twilight Struggle, my second GMT game on the list. This is, or was for a long time, the number 1 game on BGG for quite a while. And it is a fantastic 2-player epic game where one player is the Soviet Union, one player is the United States, and you are playing out the Cold War from the post-World War II era until the fall of the Soviet Union in the early war, mid-war, and late war. It's so good. It is another one of those hand management, card-driven games where cards are either events or they're operation points. If it's your opponent's event, you have, and you play it, you have to trigger the event if you're going to use the operations points. And so it's this terrible tension of, man, I got this great hand of all of, 3 and 4 operation cards, but boy, it's a bunch of my opponent's events and they're going to trigger, and I have to figure out how to minimize the damage that I'm doing to myself while I'm trying to play out these operation points. It does a great job of illustrating the domino theory, because basically it's not a war game in one sense. It's a Cold War game because you're putting influence out on the board. You're not sending troops necessarily. You are exerting influence over these different countries, and before you can go to one country, you have to establish influence in one area. You can help initiate coups. And there's just so much. I mean, that's one of the things I love about a lot of these GMT games is the history that comes through. And that definitely happens here. Do you think you'll ever give this game a shot again, Alex?
Maybe.
Okay.
If it's better taught.
Sure. And the thing is, now I know the game so well. Like, there's a lot going on. There's pretty high rules overhead, but once you know it, you really know it. And I really know it. In fact, I just played it yesterday on Steam against the computer, and I won because I'm awesome.
Good job.
That is my number 5, Twilight Struggle.
Number 4.
Number 4 is the last of the GMT games. Alex?
Combat Commander Europe.
Yeah, Combat Commander Europe. In fact, Rory and I are going to be meeting this Sunday to do the last scenario in Combat Commander Europe, and then we're going to turn right around and open up the box for Combat Commander Mediterranean. And we are super, super excited for this. Last year, let's see, this was my number 4 last year, so it's in the exact same spot. That's pretty interesting. But this is a tactical 2-player World War II tactical combat game, and you have it's just small, like platoon level. You've got a couple different squads with some different heavy weapons. There's really no vehicles to speak of. There's some scenarios where there kind of are, but not really. It's just infantry for the most part, and it's not a card-driven game, although it's a game that's about hand management and playing cards. The cards also double as multiple things. So it's the orders that you play, it's actions that can augment orders, it's a die roll, and it's an event randomizer, and then it's a hex randomizer. 5 or 6 things on these cards, and it's just such a cool system. You're basically trying to sculpt your hand to have these big turns. Because for the most part, I don't remember what the statistics are, but in like World War II, a very tiny proportion of every shot fired actually hit somebody. It's all about kind of weight of fire and suppressing units. And it's just a fantastic game. And Rory and I are just having a blast playing this. I've taught this to several people. Ellie and I get to play this. Nick and I have played this once before. It's just great. Oh, Jared and I have played a couple times. I love this game, and I'm super excited to get through Mediterranean. Eventually, the Pacific version will hit the P500 point, and looking forward to that. So that's my number 4, Combat Commander.
My number 4 is a familiar staple of this list. It's one that, when I first put this on the list, some might have thought, this is a flash in the pan. There's no way this will still be on the list. It is, because I literally just played this game yesterday, Sean. It's Flip Ships.
Yep.
The game about ships and flipping them. This is a cooperative dexterity game, which is not a term or a combination you hear thrown around a lot, but it's done brilliantly here. It's a Space Invaders-esque game where you are flipping discs up in the air, trying to land them on cards or inside of the mothership. If you clear out all the cards and do enough damage to the mothership before the mothership does, or the cards do 20 damage to you, you win. Congratulations. It's a game where it is truly cooperative, and what's great about it is everyone has their own unique powers, and there's a lot of structure in the game to ensure that every player is going to have a moment of magic. Just a turn of magic, a turn where they're the hero. And it's so great to see. The game tends to lend itself to tense moments, and if you don't find yourself having tense moments at the end of the game, there's easy ways to ramp up the difficulty and make this as hard or as easy as you want it to be. I love what this game does. Kane Klenko did a brilliant job when he came up with this, but even subtle touches like that it's an ambigram, that it's the same way face up as it is face down. Fantastic touches. I don't know if this thing's ever getting an expansion. I hope it does at some point. It's held up for me, though. It's one that I've demoed at conventions. I've taught to so many people, and I have yet to get sick of it. And I still find cause to play it. I love Flip Ships. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. This thing is a fixture of the list and will likely be here for a good chunk of time to come. That's my number 4, Flip Ships.
Number 3.
Sean, you're good at predictions. Because my number 3 is Scythe.
Yeah.
And it dipped not because the game itself has gotten any worse. In fact, there's been great content put out for it. Rise of Fenris got expansion of the year from some folks. There's a modular board. There's all sorts of fantastic Scythe-related content out there. I am held back on 2 fronts. One, I don't have a copy handy. I certainly have access to a copy. I'm not saying that. But I just don't have one. So it doesn't... Don't have... I don't have a ton of... opportunities to play it would be the perfect term. And also, I'm held back by the fact that I've never lost this game. I mentioned this a year ago. Oh, man, I love this game so much. Why haven't I played it? It's brilliant. I love this game. And then anytime there's maybe even a slight chance that I'd play this game, it doesn't happen. I think partly because I'm afraid to lose. I'm afraid to lose, Sean.
When's the last time you played it?
Boy, it's been a good chunk of time, Sean.
2 years?
I don't even know, Sean. I might have still been in
cow.
Albuquerque last time I played this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your list is weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's a weird list. But you know what? It doesn't stop me from appreciating the brilliance of this game. You mentioned a lot of it in your description, but it does a great job of using the threat of combat to prove devastating. I love that you can win this game in so many different ways. It just meshes. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant game. It's my favorite from Stonemaier, which I love Stonemaier as a company. I enjoy Jamie as a person quite a bit as well. This is my favorite, hands down, from them. That is Scythe, my number 3.
All right, my number 3, Alex. Man, you are just wrong. It's Motaina.
What? How is this possible?
How is it not possible? This is all right. Look, so this was number 7 last year.
Wow. Have you played it since last year?
Yes.
Okay.
The year before that, it was 5. And I think that was the first year it was able to be on the list.
What is happening?
What do you mean, what is happening? It's a fantastic game.
I agree, but wow. Okay. Explain yourself. Explain yourself.
I don't know if you know this, Alex, but I tend to like card games quite a bit. It has multi-use cards. And we're always talking about the elegance of this game. I mean, I like it more than Glory to Rome. It's my absolute favorite Carl Chuddick game. I have played it on 3 occasions in the last 3 weeks. Matthew and I played it a couple weeks ago. Last week, I taught it to Andres over at Empire. And then Raquel and I played it just a couple nights ago. I had said to her, I'd be like, you know what? We need to play Motaina more often. That just kind of needs to be our go-to quick little, we spend 40 minutes playing 2 games of it. And she was like, I was just thinking about Motaina too. So no, it's fantastic. It is such a good game. Like you said, there's so many different ways to win, and you're always winning in a very just interesting way. And so this game against Raquel, she had this crazy board. She had so many works done. So you score points by building these works, right? You also score points by having another cards classed as sales, but certain conditions have to be met for them to score. And then you can also score points for cards in hand, but again, other conditions have to be met for those to score. And so she had just a ton of points on the board, but I had just set it up so that I had 4 metal cards in hand, which are the most expensive cards. Well, those in brick, there were 3 points each. And so she had like plus 10 points on the board, but I reveal my hand plus 12. It was such a cool win. Alex, I like heavy games. I like big, war games and stuff like that. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy one of the best card games to have ever been created. It's my number 3 game, Alex.
All right. I don't know you.
What? Okay, I'm going to repeat. It was on my list last year and the year before.
I know, but it was dipping. It was on a downward trend, and now it's surged up to top 3 status.
It has.
Wow.
It really has.
Okay. That's my biggest surprise of the year.
Okay.
By the way, you are winning this top 10 because your list is way more interesting.
I know, right?
Anyway. Hey, what's next?
Number 2.
All right. My number 2, Alex, talk about interesting. Let's see. Last year, number 2 was, it was Twilight Struggle, which I've already mentioned. This is going to be an upset, Alex. My number 2 game is Kemet. This has held on to the number 1 spot last year in 2018, in 2017, and let's see, in 2016. 3 years, this was my number 1 game, and it has fallen to number 2. Just sad. And you know what? I've played it several times since last year. I've played it with the brand new Seth expansion, which I think is fantastic. It creates a 1 versus many way to play the game. This is my absolute favorite dudes on a map game that I'm looking for a game to be better, for a dudes on the map experience to be better. Cyclades isn't better. Lords of Hellas isn't better. Kemet is where it's at for me. because it uses an interesting combat system where it's somewhat deterministic. There's no dice rolling. You've got these cards that you're playing. It has these really cool power tiles that create these asymmetric powers for you. Just a very tense game, whether you're playing the standard game or whether you're playing the one versus many game. There are 2 expansions now, like I mentioned, the Seth expansion, and there's also I can't remember the name of the expansion, but it adds the black pyramids and the black power tiles, some other stuff. You don't use everything from that expansion, but it's great. It's fantastic. It's fallen to number 2, but I think it makes sense why. And I'm looking forward to playing it as much as possible. So good.
If I could right now, I would forfeit reading off the rest of my list just because I'm there's just no interest left in mine, Sean. Okay. Everyone knows what 2 and 1 are.
Sure.
But I'll read them anyway. My number 2 is The Mind. The Mind from Wolfgang Warsch. We mentioned before this is sort of about the player. And again, I'm emphasizing more and more table experience. And this is a fantastic table experience. Great way to get to know people. So simple that it almost feels... You almost feel stupid that you didn't think of this idea for a game first. But you didn't. Wolfgang Warsch did, and he did an amazing job with it. I've talked about this game to death. It's a game. It's not an experience. Everyone who says it's an experience can go straight to hell. That's The Mind. My number 2.
Number 1.
And my number 1 is Baseball Highlights 2045.
All right.
We played in the largest tournament ever of this game at Dice Tower Con. It continues to hold up. I played on the app all the time. I played it in an online league. I play in person. I play this game the most consistently. I love the theme. I love the game. The expansions do a ton for it. It's amazing. If you're a Dukes of Dice fan who remotely has my inclinations and taste, you got to give this a try. Come on. It's still selling, I think, pretty decently for Eagle Griffin. Be curious to see how often Football Highlights comes out, because that should be hitting the tables later this year. So we will see. So that's my number 1, Baseball Highlights 2045. It's going to take a lot to overturn that. Sean, what's your number 1?
What do you think it is, Alex?
I have lost so much. I'm so topsy-turvy right now, I don't even know. My equilibrium has been thrown off.
What if I told you I was lying before?
When you said there were no capstone games?
No.
When you said it wasn't Magic the Gathering?
Correct.
Okay, it's Magic the Gathering. All right, well, then I feel deceived and wronged, and you're a terrible person.
Yeah, it's Magic the Gathering. And so we've kind of talked about this before when we've done these lists. And I said, there's a chance that Magic would be on my list. It could even be my top game. But I kind of want to stick to board games for whatever reason. It was even though Race for the Galaxy is a card game, right? I kind of wanted to exclude CCGs, LCGs for some kind of reason. Because certainly Netrunner could be up there. Even though I haven't played it much, Legend of the Five Rings could be up there. And so when you wanted to take Motaine off the list, Alex, there's this part of me that's always going to be a card game player. Whether it was playing poker for several years there, where it was like a somewhat decent-ish source of income. I just love playing cards. Something about playing cards, because those were my first gaming experiences. Get rid of checkers and hi-ho cheerio. I just remember playing blackjack, playing poker with my grandparents. Just something about playing cards is just so simple and ritualistic. And in terms of what got me into hobby gaming, Magic is it. I played it in revised edition, 93, 94, whatever that was. And I've been in and out of it over the years. The longest stretch of time out of it was probably between 2000 and 2007. And then I would kind of get back in, get back out. And boy, it's just such a great game. And there's parts of this hobby that wouldn't be here today without Magic. Certain game stores wouldn't be here without Magic to this day. Magic just had its biggest quarter ever. It is doing incredibly well, incredibly successful. There are, and I hear this all the time from a lot of people, there's all of these misconceptions about Magic. There's people remember it in certain ways. Oh, it's just the most expensive cards win. And in certain methods or certain ways of playing, that's definitely true. I'm not going to deny that. If you're playing in a legacy tournament, you're going to need a $1,500 deck. If you're playing in a vintage tournament, you're going to need a $20,000 deck, period. If you're playing in a standard tournament, you're going to need a $200 to $500 deck to be competitive. But there's a ton of different ways to play it. There's ways to play it on a budget. There's a bunch of different, like there's Commander, which is my absolute favorite format. There's cubing, where I have collections of cards that are there as a set, and we treat them as booster packs that we open and draft. Doesn't cost you anything once you've built the cube. And I've done pauper cubes where it's only common cubes or common cards, and I've done high powered cubes where it's pretty pricey cards. It's just great. It's going to be something that I look at this list. Will I be playing all of these games for the rest of my life in some way, shape, or form? Maybe some of them, maybe not. I feel like Magic in some way, shape, or form is always going to have a part of my life. There may be a period where I'm out of it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But with Magic Arena, which is just a fantastic new way to play online, and with this is hands down the game that I've spent more hours playing than any other by just a significant margin, by exponential factor. I can't think of another game that's even come close over my lifetime. And for this to not have been number one every single year since we started is a travesty, Alex.
I've told you it should have been on your list before.
I know you have. To your credit, you have. And it should have been. It brings me so much joy. More than any other game on my list, which is incredible. And I love all those games. They're all fantastic games. So that's my number one. It's Magic. I'm a dirty, filthy Magic player, everybody. It's who I am. Take it or leave it.
All right. Well, that's our top 10 of all time. And next up, another tradition, Sean. The annual State of the Duchy. Delivered by President Ramirez. President Ramirez, what is the State of the Duchy?
I feel like I could at least my portion. I feel like I could replay my portion from last year.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, huh?
Yeah, I think so. So, last year at this time, I had taken over the law firm. I'd been running it for 3 or 4 months, and my focus obviously had to be there. And now we're just in this period of expansion. I've got a new attorney, another paralegal. We're moving offices. We're expanding our field of practice. And so like today, I spent some time at work doing some podcast stuff, which I really didn't have time for. But I'm like, well, I'd like to put some amount of effort into it. And I just don't have the time to do that like I had in the past. Especially when I was mostly the only attorney that was billing. Like time that I'm not billing, I just feel guilty, and I feel like, oh my God, my staff are not going to get paid this month, and not really, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's hard. And so we're expanding. It's a slow expansion. I'm hoping to have another attorney next year. And that might allow some eventual pulling back. So for me, the State of the Duchy is I'm still enjoying what we're doing. I look at our friends Aaron and Quinton. They just wrapped up their flagship podcast, which I understand why they did it. And Aaron, we've talked about it with Aaron, and I think that was a really really brave choice. I mean, podcasting's a lot of fun, but the schedule of it's tough, and the grind of it's kind of tough. And there were other projects they wanted to do, and there were, other play opportunities they wanted to have. For me right now, I'm still enjoying this. Yeah, it's nice when I'm like, hey, I don't have an agenda to play this Wednesday night, and I can just kind of play whatever. That's nice. But I enjoy our community. I enjoy, you would move to St. Louis, and we would only see each other once or twice a year. and we still get to interact every other week, more or less.
Yeah, we do. In some form or fashion. And look, there have been times over the last year where that has felt tenuous because you've been hard to reach in some cases, whether it be on Facebook chat or text or wherever else. That's been the hardest part sometimes is we'll have the interaction here, but it kind of had felt like radio silence at times. And that's gotten better of late. I think having another attorney has helped with that. You seem to be a little more energized about things. We made our first review copy request in a long time. I formally made that request today with Jamie for Tapestry, so you can get a copy sent your way. We'll see what happens with that. Jamie has a system.
Yeah. And if he does, great. If he doesn't, that's cool. Well,
yeah, we'll live. But it's tough in that sense because it's a different version of that burden that you had when I was gone. When I was gone, I was gone for this set number of weeks, and you knew I'm not reachable. I'm not part of this. I'm not doing anything.
Right.
I might join in from time to time, but there was no sense of maybe you got to be executive decision maker, period.
Right.
And I've had sort of a version of that absence, but not one where I have necessarily the power or control to jump in there and be like, okay, well, we're doing this week because of this.
Sure.
So it's a little bit more of an unseen one because you're still on the show and you're still there. The presence is still there, but it's been different, and I'm happy to see that kind of shifting. So
yeah. And there was a big chunk of time where I was putting a lot of energy into growing the podcast, right? And getting our name out there and hustling for review copies and some aspect of that may have been Empire, because Empire brings in a lot of games for the library. And so I have to hustle as hard for that. But also I've just been, I've been content with where the podcast is at in terms of numbers, in terms of our listenership. But yeah, I mean, it's not just being content. It's also just not having time. And I
bandwidth,
think that,
yeah.
But I think, it's not going to, I don't think it's ever going to go back to the level when I was just pushing to build this thing. I mean, we've talked about it before. I was never looking into doing something full time. I don't think that was ever the goal. But definitely have it be bigger. But I also think there was a bit of ego that was wrapped in with that.
Oh, sure.
And there was probably some self-worth that was tied into that.
Podcasting is absolutely an ego thing, right? It's two dudes sitting down and hoping someone cares about their opinion.
Right. And I'm still amazed that people do, even to a small degree. Like we were excited when our first episode dropped, and I'm like, hey, Alex, we have 14 downloads.
Yep.
I'm like, so that's you, me, Raquel, and a couple people from Active Imagination, but it was cool. It was cool to see that. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to have more of a presence at cons. I gotta tell you, man, when I went to the firm I'm at now, that first year I did the Rocky Mountain Gaming Vacation in June, a full week. I did Dice Tower Con another full week. And then I did GenCon. That was July. And then in August, I did GenCon for 3 days. And I am shocked that I didn't get fired because that was a lot of time. That was a lot of time off. And even though I tried to make up as much billing as possible, that was a lot of time off. And so the next year, no one said anything, but people were kind of pissed that I took that much time off. And so that affected the next year. And then this last year, it was pretty much me. And then I was training a brand new attorney last August. But I think that while it probably won't be 4+ conventions a year, I'd like to shoot for at least 2. And we'll kind of see. We'll see how it goes. And maybe now that Chewy's getting older too, that might kind of free up some time in the evening. I don't know. We'll see. To do podcast stuff. We'll see how it goes. But I'm I'm not planning on going anywhere. I'm still happy to do what we're doing. Even if it may seem like we're just kind of treading water, we're not getting bigger. We're not moving forward necessarily. Well, not that we're not moving forward, but you know what I'm saying.
Time moves forward, Sean.
Time does move forward. But I'm happy. Like, I love our listeners. I love our guild. And, for me, that's good enough.
Yeah, I don't feel a big lack. I will say it was a bit of an ego bummer not to be a BGG Golden Geek nominated podcast this year. I get why we didn't time out telling anyone that was happening.
Yeah,
which was dumb. That
was unfortunate.
It was real dumb. And hopefully we'll return to that list next year. It would be great. But it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't something that was unexpected or really all that devastating. So, yeah. No, I'm not going anywhere either. And it's been nice seeing the relationships built up, not just, within the guild. But I'll give an example. Anthony Harlan from Dice Tower Con, who we met at our very first Dice Tower Con, playing, what is that game? It's the game 49?
49, Game of 49.
Yeah.
Which I played 2 months ago.
So at Dice Tower Con every year, it's been kind of a mini tradition to see him and check in and see what his life is like. And last year I met Alexis, who is now his fiance. She is fantastic. And this year I got an invite to their wedding.
Oh, nice.
And that's a cool Duchy moment. That's, he met us randomly. I met him randomly at a convention, and it was sort of like we became summer camp buddies. And I was really moved to receive that. Really, really moved. And I'm moved anytime anyone comes up to the booth, honestly, and references Monochromatic Wolf or references that they're a listener, because, I did this in TV news. You always forget that there are people watching. Always, always, always. Yeah. So as far as the podcast goes, I don't see a ton changing. I see a trend in you being a little more engaged, which I think is nothing but a positive thing for the show.
Sure.
Nothing but a positive thing. I will say, and this is sort of a weird admission and not really tied to State of the Duchy. It's more of a State of the Alex. Abby and I are doing great.
Okay.
Nothing official, but it's likely enough that we'll be engaged sometime this year. Maybe.
Oh.
So that's happening. Separate from that, I've been battling depression.
Oh.
Yeah. Tied to mostly professional life. But yeah, I've been dealing with that, and I'm seeking help, and admitting it and being cognizant of it is, I think, a big factor in moving forward and moving past it. But it's been a growing thing, and it's one that I haven't, in past times I've experienced kind of moments of it, but this has been more pervasive and has lasted longer and it's been harder to shake. So that's something I'm working on, and maybe you can hear notes of it in this podcast, because this is the weirdest anniversary episode I think I've ever been a part of, just because of the mental state I feel like I'm in for this.
Interesting.
So yeah. Anyway, I'm working on it, and I think the podcast will be better for it if I can work on that.
Okay.
My goal is to hopefully be in a better place as far as that goes next year. But anyway, that's that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners out there that, well, I mean, I know for a fact we have listeners out there that have some of those issues, and not issues is the wrong. I didn't mean that in a pejorative sense.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. are battling that or dealing that or living with that, whatever you prefer. But yeah, it's rough, because it's part of kind of who I am, and quintessentially who I am, I think, is happy-go-lucky and energetic, and just kind of go for it. And I'm not feeling that these days, and so I don't feel like myself, and that's hard.
I can imagine that would be hard.
Anyway, that's a really downer note to end this State of the Duchy on. Anything else you want to add to the State of the Duchy?
So when you propose to Abby, or is she proposing to you?
No,
I don't want to make assumptions about gender.
No, I'm
norms.
going to propose to her.
Are you gonna incorporate a board game into it?
Probably not. Probably not.
No.
Yeah, unlikely.
Maybe you should.
Okay. If I were to, it would be like doing it at Pieces, where we had our first date, or sneaking something into a game of Patchwork, which was the first game we played together. So, I don't know. Those are ideas, but I don't think they're good ones.
Before I proposed to Raquel, there was no game associated with the proposal, but I hid the ring in a copy of Dungeon Pets.
Oh, okay.
And so when I proposed, because Mariah and Chewy were there, when I proposed, Mariah had the ring. I don't know why I gave Mariah the ring, but the keyword for her to give me the ring and put everything in motion was Dungeon Pets.
Oh, nice. You had some help. I don't have the same level of help.
I got rid of Dungeon Pets.
Oh no. Well, that story didn't end super great.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I should not have gotten rid of Dungeon Pets.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not. I think you probably need to go buy a copy of Dungeon Pets.
But it's not the same. It's not the same Dungeon Pets.
Well, it's too late now. That ship has sailed. And time moves forward, Sean, as it does.
What a bummer.
Hey, speaking of things that aren't a bummer, like these last two topics on this State of the Duchy, let's talk about the honorable mentions.
Let's do it.
All right, first up, the name father, Steve O'Rourke, with 5 and dime. 5 years and 10 games on the list. It was pretty clever, but we didn't pick it.
Sure was. King Splendor.
Oh, wait, before you go to the next one.
Yep.
We did have a naming controversy with last week's episode.
Oh, yes, we did.
The name father had gotten credit for it, but it turns out that name he had suggested and that we picked was previously suggested for a Feldmas episode by Jimmy DM90.
Ah.
And Steve O'Rourke has ceded credit for that title to Jimmy DM90. In any
this
case,
could have been a huge scandal.
Huge scandal.
Could have completely brought down the Duchy.
Of all people, Steve O'Rourke, the name father, should know that academic fraud is not to be taken lightly.
I tell you.
Anyway. Cool. Next up. Sorry, King Splendor.
Yes, King Splendor is not the name of the title, it's the name of the person. King Splendor suggested 5 explored and 6s galore. 5 years explored and a bunch of 6s.
Yeah?
Because we're talking about our top 10. Those should all be 6s.
That was a pretty clever name. Dustin Dowdle. Well, I don't remember ever reading this name. So, hey, Dustin, nice job. With State and Restate. State of the Duchy and restating our top 10 of all time. Nicely done.
Very nice. Ben Ogden suggested 10 score. And 5 years ago, little Abraham Lincoln Gettysburg Address reference there. Can't get enough of those.
Nope. And Blaine Miley with the last one of our top 6 with Relay. Love those games. 10-5 meaning relay the information. So hence
like 10-4 is like got it, like for CB code.
So what's 10-6?
10-6 is do you have any nachos?
All right.
Then hopefully they respond 10-4.
But I would not because I don't have any nachos.
Oh man, nachos are great.
Certainly not of a high quality. We don't have a good New Mexico nacho here.
No, I suppose not.
Anyway. Cool. Well, that's going to do it for 5 years. 5 years in the book, Sean.
That's quite an accomplishment. 5 years, 206 episodes. It's pretty crazy, Alex.
Not that we celebrated in any real form or fashion other than doing the list and other traditional things. So
no, it's kind of sad. Like, was it year one? I did everything as Splendor.
Yep. And then we had the great intro from Jake one year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
And we had a bunch of people congratulating us on little snippets. I know, we used to prepare for this kind of thing. And now we're a bunch of losers.
It's like as you get older, you start doing less and less things for your birthday. Oh, wait, that's not true for me necessarily.
Oh, boy.
It used to be, and now I have a convention.
Yes, you do. And what I hear is a fantastic night of karaoke.
No, it's piano bar.
Piano bar, sorry.
Yeah.
It might as well be karaoke. You do a lot of singing.
Yeah, everyone's singing. Singing. All right, well, that's going to do it. Alex, happy Duke-aversary to you.
Happy Duke-aversary.
And this has been episode 206, the quintessential Quinquennial episode. Thanks again to Baker Mitchell. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on August 8th, 2019. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' awesome titles at ArcaneWonders.com and get more information about improving your play experience at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.